Kitco News special coverage of PDAC 2024 is brought to you by Gold Mining, Uranium Energy Corp, and Uranium Royalty Corp.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeremy Safran. Welcome back to Kitco News' coverage here at PDAC 2024. Now, the uranium market is seeing a lot of action right now. Prices going up, more and more people getting interested in this space. And this comes at a time when there's a big push for clean energy. Nuclear power obviously doesn't come with a lot of carbon. So we're going to be talking to Scott Melbye. He is the CEO of Uranium Royalty Corporation. Scott, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's great to be here.
What a monumental year for uranium.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a supply and demand crisis. We've seen prices increase around the board. Tell me how exciting it is for you and what you expect to happen here. How's the show?
And it is exciting. I have 40 years of perspective, having been in this industry since the early 80s. And I don't think I've seen a combination of the fundamentals, of the geopolitics, of the green energy transition all come together to really drive this narrative behind nuclear power and uranium. So it's not surprising. We've seen uranium prices double from $50 to $100 a pound. But what's really developing now is a plain and simple supply squeeze, right, where we've always had a production consumption deficit. It's run anywhere from 50 to 70 million pounds a year, but it didn't matter because we had inventories and secondary supplies that buffered any sort of shortfall. Now with the inventories gone, we need new mine production, and we need a lot of it, and we need it very quickly. Perhaps 8 to 10 new mines coming online globally around the world between now and 2030. So it's exciting times for miners, developers like UEC, and for royalty companies like URC that are capital providers to those companies.
Talk a little bit, I mean, you just talked that you've been in this for 40 years, so you've seen it all. You've seen the ups and the downs of uranium. I mean, after Fukushima, stigmatization was huge on nuclear power. Where are we at now? It seems as though people are starting to understand this might be what we need in order to power this world.
I think it's a realization that the green energy transition hasn't gone as smoothly as many had hoped. Mm-hmm. And it's not that the objective is a good one, cleaner, greener, carbon free or lower carbon energy, but we kind of went about it with too much ideology and not enough math and science. And wind and solar are great intermittent sources of supply, but they run 30% of the time. Right. So nuclear can be that carbon-free baseload power that runs 24/7. It is the math and science in the equation. So we're seeing the political left, political right in the United States, Republicans and Democrats are just as likely to support nuclear power these days. It's one of the few things that they agree on Capitol Hill. Right. So that's really driving public opinion and political support. It's not surprising we've added 96 reactors around the world, 66 reactors in the last 10 years, 62 more under construction. And then we haven't begun to see the effect of SMRs and advanced reactors. Yeah. So these are really exciting times. It's going to need a lot of uranium.
Yeah, a lot of uranium. I mean, you've been to Capitol Hill, you've talked to the politicians, you've obviously been to Congress. Let's talk about what you're seeing on the U.S. side. We're going into an election year, as you just mentioned. No matter who wins, nuclear is still going to be a power source.
Yeah, so for Democrats, nuclear provides a carbon-free baseload complement to wind and solar. For Republicans, it's a 24/7 source of energy that hedges price risk from natural gas and is part of an all-of-the-above energy strategy. So it's not surprising we've seen legislation advance to support licensing, permitting of small modular reactors. And frankly, what hits our industry is support for the domestic uranium conversion and enrichment fuel cycle. In December, the House and Senate passed the Nuclear Fuel Security Act, which expanded the Strategic Uranium Reserve to include enriched uranium. Right. That was signed into law. That now needs to be funded through appropriations, and this week in Congress, they're looking to pass an energy and water bill that would fund to the tune of $2.7 billion, that program, but it's tied to the other piece of the equation, which is a Russian uranium ban. The money will not be dispersed without the Russian uranium ban, and that's important because government doesn't want to kickstart and stimulate our industry with that kind of investment just to have the Russians undercut things in 2 or 3 years' time. Right. So if we know the Russians aren't going to be dumping uranium in the West, I'm absolutely confident that the uranium conversion enrichment industries will get back to where we were prior to the breakup of the Soviet Union, and we'll be self-sufficient and energy independent.
And tell me a little bit about where we are on that legislation. I mean, where are we at with the Russian ban? We saw Kazakhstan obviously come out and say, we're not going to be able to supply as much as we do. So we saw those prices come up, but a real supply problem here.
Yeah, so again, the ban is the other part of the equation. It was also unanimously supported by the House, Senate, Republicans, and Democrats before Christmas, but was held up for one vote, Ted Cruz, out of our home state, of UEC's home state of Texas, on completely procedural grounds. It had to do with a semiconductor chip bill he was pushing, and not Russian uranium ban or advancing projects in the United States. So that's disappointing, but given that we have unanimous support, whether he drops the hold or we just attach it to another bill, it's not if, it's when. So it's very important. I mean, Kazakhstan is not banned under the Russian uranium ban, but all of the Russian uranium that comes in is sourced ultimately from Kazakhstan. But Kazakhstan can hardly keep up with their production guidance with sulfuric acid issues, transportation and logistical nightmares through the Trans-Caspian route, and a bigger issue, which is the influence and control that Russia and China are exerting on Kazakhstan today. Russia controls half the production in Kazakhstan. China is now quickly consolidating the other half. So the world's largest uranium producer shouldn't be counted on by Western Europe, Canada, the United States going forward. So we need mines in places like Canada and the United States.
And what do you think that the government is doing to kind of encourage that to happen? Obviously, it's not easy to get a mine going. About 10 years, 20 years with permitting and a lot of capital that's not really easy to access now. Does this give us an advantage here in the North America? Can we keep up?
We need to, because we're in a global resource war. I mean, Russia has their very ambitious nuclear program in their client states. China is the fastest growing nuclear energy program, and they're gobbling up uranium mines in places like Namibia and Kazakhstan. So, if we're going to be competitive on a global scale, we need to focus on our own self-sufficiency, and that it's really an energy independence question. We want to be not reliant on critical minerals or strategic commodities like uranium from countries like Russia and China.
How successful has it been restarting these mines into operation? I know UEC's done a couple of these. Tell me a little bit about the process and where you're at now.
Yeah, so in the past, the startup of new mines wasn't as critical because we had the inventory buffer.
Right.
Now the startup of these mines is critically important. Permitting and licensing is a long process. So if mines are not already permitted, licensed, they've got an 8 to 10 year road ahead of them. But even the restart of mines is not a given, but it is the low-hanging fruit that we're seeing with mines in the United States, like UEC's, is a reactivation of operations in Wyoming and utilizing existing infrastructure in Texas. So those are the ones that are going to be the fastest to market. But then we need other more greenfield projects coming online, and some of them are in sub-Saharan Africa or Kazakhstan, which present a bit of a risk concern.
Right. It's interesting. Some analysts, we were talking about PDAC last year, for instance, the year of lithium. We saw a decline in lithium prices and a little bit on the demand and supply side, too. We're trying to triple power to nuclear by 2050. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, if analysts say the same thing, we're going to have a correction on uranium prices here, maybe we're at the top. It doesn't sound like that's the case.
No, and I think, that was kind of mistakenly an analogy was drawn to lithium that went up so high so quickly and came down. This little correction from $107 a pound in the spot market to 92, 93 is not a lithium story because our demand remains incredibly low, robust and increasing. Our barriers to entry of new mines is just not like copper or other established commodities. This gap is very real. So I think if anything, if we're having a pullback in the uranium equities as a result of this pullback in the spot price, this is more a consolidation for the market to find a new base, and then the next leg up can be built upon. And it's really a great entry point. We heard a lot of folks say, well, did I miss the uranium investment story? No, this is a great, uranium equities have fallen back 15 to 30% in the last 4 weeks. That's a great buy signal.
Now, Scott, I know that you were in Dubai at COP28, a very monumental time for uranium at that show. I'm curious, though, you're tripling power by 2050, nuclear power. Can you get there?
Yeah, I mean, that was a very exciting declaration made at COP28. It was 22 world leaders and 150 companies signed on to that pledge. Is it aspirational? Yes, but is it achievable? I think so. I mean, already the inertia that the industry has with the current growth rates, we're looking to double in that 2040 to 2050 time period. So getting the concerted effort of governments and then getting the companies that are going to make that happen on board with that kind of goal is significant. So nuclear power growth is already robust, but if it's going to make the meaningful impact on carbon reduction and affordable, reliable energy going forward, those are the kind of numbers that the industry is going to need to hit.
Tell me a little bit about the technology you were referring to. Obviously, we're seeing the small modular reactors, some huge potential there with a lot of power accessibility. Where do you think this will go in the next, say, 2 years?
Yeah, so for small modular and advanced reactors, we have a critical first-of-a-kind kind of demonstration period between now and 2030. In Canada, it's GE Hitachi at Darlington, just outside of Toronto here. In the United States, it's TerraPower, NuScale, X-Energy, where they need, with that Canadian and U.S. government cost sharing, need to build those plants, need to build them on time. They have great partners like Warren Buffett in Wyoming at TerraPower. You have Dow Chemical in Texas. Those are important, but if those are built on time, on budget, we see thousands of those being ordered in 2030 onward because of the scalable nature, lower capital cost, again, uses in hydrogen production, desalination, data centers. So it really could change the way electricity is generated and distributed in the next decade, but we have to deliver on the first-of-a-kind units in the next 6 years.
Getting closer? Getting closer?
Absolutely, we are. And, I think the permitting and licensing needed to be streamlined, and we see even the legislation passing the ADVANCE Act, which is saying, hey, the U.S. government is not going to stand in the way and block these things. The NRC is going to be receptive, still paying attention to the public interest in properly regulating the industry, but not frustrating the industry's attempts to grow.
Now, you're the president of the Uranium Producers of America. I'm curious we've been talking policy, but I'm curious, you're lobbying for this and you're talking to a lot of leaders in the space. Is this your year? How excited are they?
Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, in 40 years of doing this, uranium and nuclear power has always been Republicans supporting, Democrats opposing, and, very strongly opposing. And now when you have the parties see eye to eye on one of the very few issues that they see eye to eye on, we really have the ability to move nuclear power forward. We have the ability to revitalize the domestic fuel cycle. And I think combination of the Nuclear Fuel Security Act getting funded likely this week and the Russian uranium ban to follow in the coming weeks, hopefully, there's no reason why the U.S. uranium industry can't be producing 10, 15, 20, 25 million pounds a year, which has been basically zero in recent years. So I'm very excited for 5 of our member companies in the Uranium Producers of America have either restarted or are restarting operations. That's a very bullish signal and good for energy security for the United States.
Amen to that. Yeah. Scott Melbye joining us. Thank you. I hope you're enjoying the show. A little bit of a rock star here this year.
Oh, it's good to have uranium investors really see the fruits of their patience and perseverance.
Absolutely, and you guys have been great on delivering that ROI for investors as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
On the show. And thank you for tuning in to Kitco's coverage here at PDAC 2024. I'm Jeremy Safran. Please go to kitco.com for the latest, and we'll see you next time.
Kitco News special coverage of PDAC 2024 is brought to you by Gold Mining, Uranium Energy Corp, and Uranium Royalty Corp.